Hey everyone, welcome to another Zwift racing video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to win a Zwift race. And this is a pretty broad topic, so I'm just going to be covering some of the points and what I think is the most effective to helping you win a Zwift race. So the example that I'm going to be using is pretty recent. It is from a few days ago if you're watching this at the time of posting, and it is the Stage 5A race, McCurry race, and this is just two back-to-back sprint races, one 4-mile race and one 3-mile hill climb. So this is the first race, and the current clip is showing 3 minutes into the race, and I just went through sprint banner, and this is kind of the start of where I start talking about what the most important part to winning a Zwift race is. So something that's very unique about Zwift that sets it aside from outdoor riding and other racing experiences is that there are power-ups available. Now, the reason why this is so important is because if you have a better power-up than the rest of the riders, you already have an advantage to winning the race. So what you really gotta do is save the power-ups that you know are the best, which is normally going to be the aero power-up or the featherweight power-up, depending on the kind of race you are doing. So whenever you get those, I'd recommend holding on to them unless you have a bunch of segments left that will guarantee you another opportunity to get a power-up. If there's just one more opportunity, like in this race clip that I am showing, where there's only one more sprint left that you can receive another power-up, I would recommend definitely holding that power-up and waiting until a finishing sprint, because it really is going to help you a ton in the finishing sprint. So that pretty much wraps up the first topic, which is having a good power up. The next thing that's really important to winning a Zwift race is making sure you are fresh by the end of the race. Now, in most races, you will be really fatigued, but if you can, I highly recommend just sitting in and using the draft as much as possible. If you are really going for that win, don't try to do any attacks or anything like that, and try to just stay mellow unless you think that there is a move that is really dangerous to whether you win or lose the race. So this is what you see me doing right here. I know that this rider is a threat, and they seem to be pretty serious about this attack. When the rider turns on their power up and goes for the win, that's how you know that you need to be chasing them and shutting down the attack before it grows too big. And that'll basically put you into second place if you allow the attack to go and the lone rider ends up winning. So to sum that up, basically just stay in the draft as much as possible unless there is an attack that you think is threatening your shot at winning the race. The next thing that is really important to helping you be very successful in a Zwift race is knowing the course that you are racing. Knowing the course that you're racing is important because if you do know the course, you'll know every single turn and you'll kind of get the idea of what is going to be coming next, where to use the energy and where not to use the energy, so you are not caught off guard when someone does attack and end up spreading the group out. This ultimately helps you save power and draft more efficiently to really just help you have the most energy possible by the end of the race. Knowing the finish well is also important because if you don't know the finish, you won't really know where to start your sprint, and knowing when and where to start your sprint is one of the topics later on in this video, and it really is one of the most important topics that I'm going to be discussing. On my website, zracecentral.com, I do have some articles about different courses that kind of gives you a brief overview of how the course is, and some other things that I do sometimes if I'm really serious about a Zwift race is reading the Zwift Insider article about it, or just Googling it in YouTube and then finding a race scenario so you can kind of see where riders tend to attack and where things tend to be pretty mellow so that you know where you should be using your power in the race. One real quick note about drafting is that you don't want to fall too far behind in the group so that you have to actually chase and work harder than the other riders around you. You want to kind of stay in the sweet spot around where I am right now at this part of the video. And you can see that I am kind of just sticking towards the back but not off the back. And there is a very big difference between off the back and dangling on the back. And you can really tell once you get a feel for Zwift racing and the draft dynamics, because you'll definitely feel that you do have to work pretty hard at the back of the group when you are too far back behind. Now, one more side note, I really want to point out that right here, I could have used my power up and I could have saved some watts here, but instead I decided to hold my power up. You can see some other riders using their power up, and that doesn't guarantee that they are going to get a better power up. That's really what I want to highlight for the power up section, is that you don't know if you're going to get a good power up. And most times when you think, okay, I'm going to get a better power up, you don't, and you end up getting a mini plus, and it's completely useless in the finishing race scenario, and you end up losing dramatically. So you can see that I just held my aero boost, and it is really going to help in the finish when I do end up going for that win. Now, when the group gets strung out here, the best thing to do when it's this close to the finish is to just hang into the middle of the group and just draft, because when the people are anxious and getting ready for the finishing sprint, they aren't going to let anything go with 0.7 miles left. They're going to not chase, but keep the pace high because they are nervous, and it's kind of just natural instincts to raise the power when you see people off the front of the group this close to the finish. Now you can see that we very quickly brought them back, and knowing the course is really helpful right here, because some riders started to turn their featherweight boosts on thinking that they were close to the finish while they really weren't. So I knew that this was not the finish yet, and really looking at that little progress bar up there is also going to help you know when the finish is. And you can also sometimes see the banner on the mini map, but this race did not have that, so I did not really know where it was based off of the map, but I did know distance wise. Now we're getting to the finishing sprint, and I'm going to let this play for a bit, and then I am going to go back and play it in slow-mo to really analyze the finish, to really talk about what I did well and what you should be taking away from this race experience. So right now you can kind of just see that I am flying through the riders. I started from the back, and I had an aero boost, which really helped me move to the front, and then passing last minute so I was not exposed in the draft too much really just helped me snag that win by 11 hundredths of a second. So the final two topics that I'm going to be covering are positioning and timing. Those are two of the key things that will help you be successful in the finishing sprint, no matter whether you're going for the win or just going for a good spot in a sprint. So when the finishing sprint starts, you should be in the middle or towards the back, depending on what you like to do. I prefer to be towards the back, and that's where I find that I do the best. Since I had the aero boost, I knew that I could easily pass the rest of the riders once I was getting my speed ramped up. So I did ramp up my speed before I started my full sprint, which is something that I do quite often, and that tends to help me get quite a few wins, and that normally helps me have the most successful result possible. So starting to ramp up before the sprint actually starts is something that I do, and I start from the back to get that momentum so that I can catch those riders who have already started a bit ago and who already have a decently large lead on me already. So you can see that right now I'm just starting to pass a few of the riders, and I am coming in at a faster speed than the rest of them, so I was going to pass them no matter what. It was just a matter of when and whether it would be in time for the finish line. So the key takeaways from this sprint finish is that you should kind of figure out what type of sprinter you are, and even if you're not a sprinter, you do have a sprinter type. So whether you're someone who can go long or you're someone who can kind of just have a short burst, it is kind of going to determine where you are in the pack when that sprint starts and how you end up performing. Another takeaway is sprint timing, and sprint timing is really going to vary from race to race because certain races have different finishes, so you are always going to be sprinting at a different time. It's kind of just getting a feel for Zwift racing and the dynamics, how long it's going to take you to get to the front of the group, and really getting to know that really well so that you can kind of have that instinct. And after racing over 500 times on Zwift, I now know when I should be sprinting, and I kind of just get that feeling like, okay, it's time to go now, and that's something that you will probably develop over time, and it's not something that you can be like, you gotta sprint from 200 meters out or 300 meters out. It's not a set distance because it really varies from race to race, especially with the different terrains and stuff like that. You don't want to say like, okay, so 500 meters out, I'm going to start sprinting, but those final 500 meters end up being a climb. And that's another thing that can be found out by just knowing the route and reconning the route before you enter a Zwift race, that's always something good to do. Again, winning is something that won't come naturally, and you're going to really need to master the Zwift tactics and Zwift technique, and then also fine-tune the places that you struggle to really make sure you have the best chance possible at winning a Zwift race. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. There's hardly anyone that I know who actually wins every single Zwift race, and if you are winning every single Zwift race, you're probably in the wrong category, and you should probably race up a category to give yourself a challenge and race against people your level. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all found this video useful, and go smash those Zwift races and leave in the comments below how you do in your next Zwift race. Let me know if these tips helped. If you have any other tips, please leave those also below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and ride on. See you all next time.